I'll now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses. Nearly 1 in 5 K-12 students attend school in a rural community. And rural schools are, in particular, are reliant on the federal funding. They typically have a smaller population, which means a smaller tax base. They're also vital employers, and they provide many services to the communities, for example, shelters for natural disasters, food pantries, before and after care. And importantly, students in rural areas do not have private schools geographically close to them to make a voucher useful. We've seen many conservative state lawmakers from rural districts oppose statewide voucher programs for that reason, including recently when 16 rural Republicans in Georgia voted to defeat a school voucher bill, and in Texas where the House voted to block any state funding from being used for vouchers. So I want to ask you, Ms. Levin, how does the implementation of a school voucher program affect rural schools and the funding of rural schools? And are vouchers a viable alternative to the students who go to school there? And how would vouchers affect the greater community in a rural area?
Thank you for the question. Vouchers are devastating to rural communities, and they don't provide any benefits. So as you and I have mentioned, there are very few private school options for students in rural communities, but the rural public schools that serve them have less elasticity, less room in their budget than many larger urban and suburban districts. So any cuts to their budgets can be devastating for school programs, including for them to cover their fixed costs, such as a library or the heating or cooling in a school.
Right. And I know as a former state legislator, and I know there are other former state legislators here, it's not always easy to find the funding to fill those gaps.
That's exactly right. And so when voucher programs take money away from state budgets or public education budgets, specifically statewide, that's going to affect rural school budgets. They're getting no benefit, but they're losing those programs and services, as well as devastating the wider community that relies on it.
And I have another question, too. We know that private schools often deny admission to children with disabilities or subject them to inappropriate or unfair discipline and even expulsion. I'd like to enter into the record a report by NCLD, the National Center for Learning Disabilities, called Private School Vouchers, Education Savings Account and Tax Incentive Programs, Implications and Considerations for Students with Disabilities. It was originally published in 2017 but updated in 2024, and it provides examples of this type of school conduct. Enter into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. And Ms. Levin, when students with disabilities do attend a private school under a voucher program, they're considered parentally placed in a private school, and thus they forfeit many rights and protections under the IDEA, and as a result, the schools are considered to be complying with the law, even when the students are not receiving the same quality and quantity of services they would in a public school that are mandated with an IEP, individualized education program, such as speech, occupational, or physical therapy. So, Ms. Levin, do private school vouchers adequately serve students with disabilities?
They do not, and they actively hurt their rights. As you said, the students lose many of their rights. Their parents lose the right to participate and have close contact with their education, and they lose rights under Section 504 and the ADA as well.
So just to clarify, the families of children with disabilities, when they take a private school voucher, they actually lose their rights?
That's correct. They lose the vast majority of their rights.
And now Mr. Blanks, I thank you for sharing your story. I just have a yes or no question. Your organization, the American Federation for Children, that was organized and funded by the DeVos family, is that correct? Just for context, yes or no? Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm going to yield back the balance of my time. Thank you.